Actually, Canada is taking away some retaliatory tariffs.
He's removing his tariffs, yeah.
Exactly.
He's removing his retaliatory tariffs, which I thought was nice. And we're going to have another call soon. Okay. Yeah, we had a very good call.
You're getting closer towards an
I like
agreement on trade?
I like them. You know, look.
You ever seen an empire start to crack? Not in silence, but in broad daylight. Well, that's what's happening right now. This is not just another political spat, not another headline lost in the shuffle. This is war. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has declared open resistance to Donald Trump's tariff crusade, and the message is crystal clear. Canada will not bend, Canada will not be bought, and Canada will not be silenced. And if that sounds dramatic, it is, because Carney himself made it so. Let's start with the truth. Canada sits at the very heart of this fight. This isn't about some small trade technicality, it's about sovereignty. Within days of stepping into office, Carney told Canadians their future was on the line. And he wasn't exaggerating. Trump had already rolled out sweeping tariffs, starting with 25% duties on steel and aluminum, and threatening to escalate to everything from lumber to dairy. Trump's words were blunt. He accused Canada of cheating America, and even floated the idea of annexation, making Canada the 51st state. For Canadians, that was more than just rhetoric. It was a direct assault on national dignity.
85% of Canada-US trade is now tariff-free. So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States.
And here's where Canada became the focus twice over. Carney made sure that in every speech, Canada's name was front and center. His campaign trail was not about abstract policy, it was about survival. He told crowds, "This isn't politics as usual, this is the most significant crisis of our lifetimes." He warned Canadians that Trump's tariffs weren't economic tools, they were weapons. Carney's message struck like thunder across Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, regions whose industries, from steel to agriculture, depend on cross-border flows. Now let's place this in time. January 20th, 2025, Trump's second inauguration. In his address, he thundered about tariffs to enrich our citizens, slammed Canada as a freeloader, and dangled the 51st state line as if it were some real estate deal. That speech sent shockwaves. Fast forward to March 23rd, Ottawa. Carney, just weeks into leadership of the Liberal Party, called a snap federal election. Why? Because he needed a mandate to resist Trump. The vote was set for April 28th. Carney staked his career, and maybe his country's future, on the belief that Canadians would back his fight. Election night proved him right. The Liberals, once trailing by 25 points, clawed back and secured a minority government. On stage, Carney didn't mince words. He said, "Trump is trying to break us so he can own us. That will never happen." The applause was thunderous, but make no mistake, those weren't just words for domestic consumption. That was a direct challenge to Washington. Then came the meeting. May 6, 2025, Washington, D.C., White House, a 2-hour session, including 75 minutes, one-on-one, between Carney and Trump. Topics: trade, Ukraine, China, foreign policy. Trump played diplomat, praising Canada as a very special place, speaking of friendship. But then he tested the waters again. Trump asked Carney to consider Canada joining the U.S. as the 51st state. Carney didn't flinch. His reply: "As you know from real estate, there are some places that are not for sale. Canada will not be for sale, ever." And Trump's response: "Never say never." The room froze. The gulf between them was undeniable. So why did it all unfold this way? Let's peel it back. Trump's strategy has always been rooted in pressure. His America First trade doctrine was designed to force neighbors and partners into concessions, painting tariffs as tools of national pride. But Canada is unique. It isn't just a neighbor, it's America's top trading partner, with deeply integrated supply chains. Millions of jobs on both sides of the border depend on this relationship. By turning on Canada, Trump was playing with fire. For Carney, this was also personal. His background as governor of the Bank of Canada and later governor of the Bank of England gave him global stature. He wasn't some rookie politician. He was a heavyweight in economics and finance. That credibility mattered. He could look Trump in the eye and not blink. He knew the numbers, knew the stakes, and he had the calm, almost surgical tone to make his defiance sting. His line that Canada was not for sale wasn't just patriotic. It was rooted in the cold reality that Canada's sovereignty is not negotiable. The consequences were immediate. Markets jolted. Canadian farmers and steelworkers felt seen for the first time in months. The Canadian dollar dipped on fear, then rebounded on resolve. Washington insiders whispered that Trump had underestimated Carney's steel. International leaders rallied. Emmanuel Macron of France praised Canada's courage, while Germany's Olaf Scholz hinted that Europe would expand trade ties with Ottawa. China, never missing an opportunity, floated the idea of deeper energy and mineral deals with Canada. The ripple effects were global. And here's an overlooked detail. Carney wasn't only fighting Trump on tariffs, he was simultaneously reshaping Canada's global posture. He pledged to raise defense spending to NATO's 2% target, recognizing that sovereignty isn't just economic, it's also military. He announced recognition of the State of Palestine by July, sending a signal that Canada's foreign policy would be values-driven, not dictated by Washington. These moves weren't just side notes, they were declarations of independence. But the war Carney declared is still economic at its core. Tariffs cut deep. Farmers in Saskatchewan, manufacturers in Ontario, exporters in Quebec, they all felt the squeeze. Carney rolled out aid packages, subsidies, and diversification plans. He pushed trade missions to Asia and Europe, accelerating deals with Japan, South Korea, and the European Union. His message, Canada will not depend on one market ever again. That diversification is the long game, but in the short term, the pain is real. Let's not ignore the human angle. Canadian truck drivers hauling goods across Detroit and Buffalo bridges faced delays and uncertainty. American retailers, from Walmart to auto dealers, started warning about rising prices. U.S. consumers, already battling inflation, saw shelves tighten. Trump promised victory, but the backlash in Rust Belt states raised alarms within his own camp. What was supposed to be a show of dominance started looking like a political liability. Now, some interesting side stories. Did you know Carney, long before politics, was nicknamed the Iceman in financial circles? Not because of coldness, but because of his calm under fire during the 2008 financial crash. That calm now plays out in politics. When Trump blusters, Carney waits, then delivers one cutting line. Another detail, during his Washington trip, Carney apparently carried briefing notes not just on trade, but on U.S. domestic politics. He knew which states would hurt most from tariffs, and he was ready to mention them. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. So, where are we now? As of late August 2025, negotiations are tense. Trump hasn't lifted tariffs, but the rhetoric has softened. Carney continues to press allies, framing Canada as the global test case for resisting economic bullying. Analysts predict that if Carney holds, other countries might follow, building a coalition less dependent on the U.S. That's the nightmare scenario for Trump, whose power rests on economic leverage. Looking forward, the prospects are sharp. If Carney's diversification works, Canada could emerge stronger, less tied to U.S. markets, more integrated with Europe and Asia. If Trump keeps escalating, he risks political backlash at home, higher consumer costs, and erosion of U.S. credibility. Either way, the empire Trump built on fear and tariffs is starting to show cracks. And here's the big question. When an empire starts to crumble, does it fall from the outside pressure, or does it collapse from within? Canada, under Carney, has shown the world that resistance is possible. The battle is far from over, but the message has been sent. Canada is not for sale. So what do you think? Is Carney rewriting the rules of North American politics? Or is Trump about to double down and strike harder? Tell me in the comments, hit subscribe, and stay tuned, because this trade war is shaping the future, and the cracks in Trump's empire are only just beginning to show.